Well, after the Diamondbacks got swept by the Marlins over the weekend, are they officially sellers at the trade deadline? We're talking about that and a whole lot more on today's episode of Snakes Territory. Hello and welcome to another episode of Snakes Territory. I'm Jesse Friedman alongside Jack Sommers. And Jack, things could not be much worse for the Arizona Diamondbacks than they are right now, frankly, as they face the Miami Marlins over the weekend. They get swept, and this stretch of 9 games that we've been talking about for so long, where they had 3 games against the Rockies, 3 against the White Sox, and 3 against the Marlins, that stretch of 9 games is now complete, and the Diamondbacks went 4-5.
I hate to say this, but things actually can still get much worse.
Well, on that dose of lovely positivity, let's talk about this Sunday finale as the Diamondbacks lose 6-4. Jack, they had a 2-1 lead. The offense wasn't doing a whole lot, but the pitching staff was finding ways to hold the Marlins at bay. Eduardo Rodriguez was pretty good in this game. I was able to get an out in the 6th inning, but the Diamondbacks bullpen did the thing once again, and that was really a theme throughout the whole weekend.
And once again, a theme, was the defense letting Eduardo Rodriguez down. In this case, especially like in the first inning, it cost him a lot of pitches, which ultimately cost him an inning of the game and which ultimately required an extra inning from the bullpen. And, you know, as Torey was saying, it's like the pieces of a gear fitting together. The gear busted apart in large part, first because of the defense, and then later, of course, because of the bullpen breakdown.
You mentioned the defensive issues. There was in the top half of the 4th inning, Eduardo Rodriguez had what appeared to be a pretty routine inning double play with a runner at first and 1 out. Ketel Marte was not able to turn that double play. Something we've seen from Ketel, I feel like a decent amount this season, where he just hasn't been able to make the transfer at times for whatever reason. That cost Eduardo Rodriguez 6 extra pitches just to finish that inning. To Eduardo's credit, he was still able to get out of that without any damage done. And then similar situation in the 5th, but a little bit more dramatic, where Eugenio Suarez had what appeared to be a pretty routine double play ball hit right at him, and he let it go by him, wasn't able to get an out at all, and Erod had to get 2 more outs in that inning, of course, to get out of it. And again, to his credit, he was able to do that, but it cost him 15 extra pitches in the process.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that this year's team simply does not play the kind of crisp defense we're used to seeing, and it seems like it just happens to Eduardo more than the other pitchers. At least anecdotally, that's the way it feels. I don't really know if there's been more errors and more mistakes actually occurring in his starts compared to the other pitchers. There might be something interesting to research, but in this case, it certainly was a major factor in shortening up his outing. He pitched very well. Again, I mean, since he's come off the injured list, he's not giving them 7 or 8 innings, but he's giving them 5 to 6 innings of about as good a quality as you could possibly expect.
Yeah, I think it's a 1.98 ERA for Eduardo since coming off the IL in 5 starts. Yeah, even if you're not getting 6 or 7 innings every time, you'll certainly take that. And again, Eduardo probably could have given the Diamondbacks 6 or 7 innings, or at least would have had a chance to if the defense had come through for him a little bit more in this game. But ultimately, Jack, I think the bullpen really kind of stole the show in this one, as it often has. Diamondbacks had a 2-1 lead going into the 8th inning, and the bullpen allowed 5 runs, and Jalen Beeks, of course, ultimately was charged with all 5 of those runs. It was just kind of a crazy situation where it felt like nobody could throw a strike, Jack. I mean, Ryan Thompson was able to to work around his issues. Jalen Beeks actually entered the game and was able to help him get out of that issue. Or actually, it was Kyle Backus who was able to get Ryan Thompson out of that. My mistake. But yeah, Ryan Thompson wasn't able to really throw strikes, and Kyle Backus was there to save the day. But Jalen Beeks really struggled to throw strikes. Wound up with 4 walks in just 2/3 of an inning of work. And when you keep issuing walks at that kind of a rate, eventually you're going to get beat by it.
Yeah, in total, the team issued 10 walks. I mean, you just don't win games that you walk 10 batters. I mean, that almost never happens. One thing I do want to say, because of course I was getting, peppered with points on Twitter, and I'm sure that there'll be some comments and reaction. My feedback on the criticisms of Torey not getting Beeks out of the game sooner is simply this. Show me your tweet where you said that Curtis should be up and ready to go when the inning started or as soon as Beeks walked a batter or two. Kevin Ginkel and Juan Murillo were not available. Torey had nobody else but Beeks and Curtis. The last time that Curtis pitched in the major leagues, his ERA for the Colorado Rockies was over 15. His ERA for the Reno Aces was 6.61. Jalen Beeks has been a stud for Torey Lovullo through much of the season. He came into the series with a 2.92 ERA. And unfortunately, 2 bad outings has blown his ERA up to 4.74. But what you're asking Torey to do is completely abandon Jalen Beeks and go to Curtis, who is a guy he doesn't know. I mean, the last time he saw him was in spring training, and he was mediocre in spring training. That's why he didn't make the club. So, it's so easy to sit on our couches and, our Cheeto-stained armchair and, make these calls. But if you don't know who's available and who's not available and what the background is on all these pitchers, you're probably going to be missing some information. Yes, we can all sit there and watch Jalen Beeks struggle and say, everybody could see he's struggling. He's not throwing strikes. But he walked 2 guys and then he struck out 2.
Well, I think he walked 1 guy and then he struck out 2, and then he walked the next 2. So I guess you could could you make a case that, runner at first, 2 outs, he issues the walk to Liam Hicks, who I think is the number 8 hitter. I mean, it was pretty rough. It was a left on left number 8 hitter situation. Beeks walks that guy. Like, in order to get Curtis ready for Otto Lopez, Torey would have had to have him warming up at least by that point, if not earlier. Could you maybe make a case that Torey should have been like, all right, Jalen Beeks has walked 2 guys in the inning. It's 2 on, 2 out. I want to have someone ready for Lopez if Beeks walks Sonoya as well. But at the same time, with what you're saying, if you have the bases loaded in 2 outs, given what we know about Jalen Beeks and given what we know about John Curtis, you probably want Jalen Beeks in there. I guess I can understand wanting just like somebody else because Beeks doesn't have it today, but it's not a clear-cut decision, and I know people in the chat or in the comments will probably be roasting us for, loving Torey Lovullo or always defending him or whatever, but you have to be aware of who is available to the D-backs in a game like this, as you said earlier.
Yeah, I go back to, if you're going to post in the comments and roast us, if you can show me a timestamp where you said Curtis should be in this game before the fact, not after. Yes, he got 4 outs on 6 pitches in this game, but I'm not interested in the hindsight 2020. If you have, evidence that you said that Torey should go to the only other reliever that he had at that point in time before the fact, then I will absolutely respect that opinion and, something that I would take under strong advisement. But I just didn't see any of that anywhere on social media until after Beeks melted down. And nobody really, called for that. So, look, Torey said that I don't know the guy that well yet, and it wasn't a situation that I wanted to put him in for his first time out. He eventually got backed into that corner anyway, and he did get out of the inning, but the damage was already done.
I'm frankly kind of tired of having these sorts of conversations, Jack, because as I've said earlier, when you have a bullpen that is as bad as the one the Diamondbacks have right now, there really is never a correct way to deploy it. And it's not to say Torey Lovullo has not made mistakes with how he's deployed that bullpen. We have talked about those things on this show at times. There have been decisions that you and I have disagreed with 100%. But even if Torey is pressing all the right buttons, you're just not going to get good results from a bullpen of this caliber. We're going to jump into some of the numbers later, but the numbers for the series as a whole, I mean, the Diamondbacks bullpen they've had some rough series this year. This might be worse than all of them. It was that bad what we saw this weekend out of that group. And frankly, there just hasn't really been anyone out there that they can count on. Even, Shelby Miller and Jalen Beeks have kind of struggled here recently as well. So the circle of trust there has gotten pretty small.
Yeah, there were two guys that you could somewhat trust in this bullpen, and now they're a zero.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Well, we're going to talk more about this game and this series and what it means for the Diamondbacks at the trade deadline. Does this mean they are sellers after what we witnessed here over the last week and a half? We're going to jump into all of that on the other side of this break.
All right, Harry's is going to get an award here, MVP in the shaving world. And AJ, if you want to equate it to things that we talk about, it's not expensive. And it's super versatile, right? The company itself, because there's other products that you can get on the site, deodorant, body wash, etc. But for your everyday shaving needs, Harry's has you covered. And you look at the pricing, you look at the quality, and you're like, wait, why was I using the old classic brand for a long time?
Listen, as somebody right now that needs a Harry's, I've just been lazy. Harry's, I have plenty of them lined up, ready to use. You can use them for more than one shave, which is huge for me. And the pricing is right. I got to go get my Harry's because my neck beard is sick. But Harry's will fix that. It'll line me up straight. It'll no bumps, no cuts. It's exactly what I need for a great price.
That's right. Get the edge on your shave with Harry's. Normally, their trial set is $10, but right now you can get it for just $6 at harrys.com/foul. That's our exclusive link, harrys.com/foul, for a $6 trial set.
We are back here on Snakes territory. Just a few more thoughts on this Sunday game, Jack. Something that stands out to me is some stolen base issues that have really been a problem for this team all season long, but we definitely saw it here in the Sunday game. The Marlins went 3 for 4 in stolen base attempts in the game. The one caught stealing that the D-backs had was frankly pretty questionable. At least that's what I thought. Javier Sonoya, it appeared, had stolen second, but they made the call that he left the base after sliding in, and Cattell kept the tag on him, and so they called him out on replay. Honestly, I thought it looked to me like Sonoya probably should have been safe, but that was the Diamondbacks' only caught stealing throughout the weekend, as the Marlins went 7 for 8 in stolen base attempts.
Yeah, and I believe it's really mostly about inability to hold runners on properly.
Yeah.
The overall team caught stealing percentage is much lower than it usually is. It wasn't great for Gabby even before he got hurt. Clearly it's a team effort. I mean, they've all got to work together on it, but the holding of runners on and the timing, the kick times, the getting the pop times, all of that adds up to timing that isn't working for them. And I don't know why that's fallen back and fallen by the wayside. Most of the pitchers, are kind of the same guys, at least in the starting rotation. So, that it's not really something that I can get a good handle on why it's happened, but it has.
We mentioned earlier that Eduardo Rodriguez pitched well. You can see his final line on the screen here: 5 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. That continues to be a very good sign for the Diamondbacks, both for this season and for the next couple of years, as Eduardo is still under team control. We saw him throwing some 94s, Jack, toward the end of the outing. His stuff looked pretty good to me. It's Eduardo Rodriguez. It's not like he's really blowing anybody away necessarily, but I guess he kind of was blowing people away at times as well. I mean, that high four-seam fastball has been a pretty effective weapon for him, and it feels like his command since he returned from the injured list has been a lot more consistent than what we saw before then.
That absolutely is what's working the best, is him dotting the ball where he wants to put it. He's not making mistakes. He's, putting it around the edges. That high fastball, it's like right at the very top or even a little above. He's not letting that slip down into, belt high or thigh high range. So, he's pitching extremely well. Pleasantly surprised. I did not expect him to pitch as well coming off the injured list. And more, please. This is great. This is exactly what they need. I did want to add just a little note. It's not on your board there, but Jake McCarthy hit a ball today well over 100 miles an hour. I think it was, 106 miles an hour. He hit it 418 feet to straightaway center field off the wall. He had a home run earlier in the series. So that's pretty encouraging. If Jake can do more of that, nobody's expecting Jake McCarthy to be a power hitter all of a sudden. But if this is something that he can actually tap into on a little bit more regular basis, that would be a big thing for him and a big thing for the team, for him to round out his game a little bit more. It's surprising because that kind of hard contact wasn't happening in Reno. He was hitting for good average, but he wasn't hitting the ball very hard. So it'll be interesting to monitor that and see if that continues. But kind of pleasant, if you're looking for a silver lining out of this series, there aren't many, but that was one of them.
Well, that's a great segue into some of our takeaways from the series as a whole. You can see Jake McCarthy's name is on here. He was 3 for 9 with a home run and the triple that you mentioned. That home run, I will add, was his hardest hit ball in his career. 110.9 miles an hour off the bat. That was a career high for him. So yeah, maybe this is a new thing. Maybe Jake just destroys baseballs now in a way that we're not used to seeing. I guess it's also worth mentioning that Brandon Pfaadt pitched pretty well, I think, all things considered, in the Saturday game. The Saturday game was a bit of a disaster. The Diamondbacks had a 7-3 lead going into the 8th inning, and in similar but even more devastating fashion than what we saw on Sunday, they ultimately lost that game 8-7 in 10 innings. But Brandon Pfaadt, Jack, was a silver lining in that game for sure. The defense, once again, did not really do him any favors, but he hung in there pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, he was forced into a 37-pitch inning in the first inning. He ended up getting out of that with only 2 runs scored, thanks to striking out the last 3 batters of the inning. And Torey Lovullo was asked why he pulled Pfaadt early. People were questioning that as well. And what Torey said was, I think he was at 86 pitches when he came out.
Yep.
And what Torey said is, when you have that high of a single pitch count inning, say 37 pitches in one inning, then that's going to cut into the total amount of pitches that they're generally going to let him throw. So if he'd had a, normal first inning, or even just like 20, 25, then he probably still would have been allowed to go over 90, 95 pitches. It's the really high pitch count innings a lot of the research points to, more than the overall pitch count. But the singular innings where guys are out there throwing 35, 40 pitches, that really tend to get guys injured. Some might remember that the outing before he hurt his elbow, Justin Martinez threw 37 pitches.
Yeah.
That's one data point. But I mean, just in general, the research shows that. So that's why Torey went to his bullpen, that was fully rested, and it kind of was working out great until it didn't. But again, that was his high-leveraged bullpen in the 8th and 9th inning that blew that game. So, I was actually really encouraged by Brandon Pfaadt's outing, though. I thought the 7 strikeouts were pretty dominating, and it was, really a tough man-up type outing for him to shut down the way he did over once those first 2 runs came home.
The first inning was pretty impressive for him, which is odd to say because the Marlins started off the game with the bases loaded, nobody out, and 2 runs already in. So I'm not saying that Brandon Pfaadt was pitching his best at the beginning, but to be able to bounce back from that spot and dial up 3 consecutive strikeouts, I don't know if Brandon Pfaadt from, a couple weeks ago would have been able to do that. The swing and miss has been kind of lacking for him lately. And that first inning, Jack, is another example of the D-backs defense just not really doing its job. Geraldo Perdomo, pretty rare for Perdomo to do something like this, but after back-to-back singles to start the game, Perdomo got what appeared to be a very routine double play that, probably would have left you with a guy at third and 2 outs, decent spot to get out of the inning with no damage done. Perdomo just wasn't able to make the play. It bounced off his glove, and instead of a runner at third and 2 outs, at that point, that allowed a run to score, and it set the table for what appeared to be maybe a massive inning for the Marlins. So just way too much of that for this D-backs defense right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wrote about in our series recap over on Arizona Diamondbacks on SI, some comments that Torey made about the defense in general, but a couple of little nuggets. I mean, they made multiple errors in a game 11 times last year. They've already got 12 in half a season. They had 46 unearned runs in 2024. They've already got 37 in 2025.
Wow.
Just a game over a half a season. So, that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about how damaging the defensive mistakes have been. If you want to list the problems on this team in order of importance, it's all about run prevention. But for me, it starts with bullpen. Number 2 is defense. Number 3 is starting pitching, or you can flip-flop defense and starting pitching. I mean, the whole three-legged chair of run prevention has had its legs, all 3 of them chopped out.
Yeah. In the series, D-backs made 5 errors, allowed 4 unearned runs, and all of those unearned runs came in the first 2 games of the series, both of which were 1-run games. So you're talking about a number of games this year where the difference in the game was basically just the other team played better defense, and the Diamondbacks lost in large part because of that. We talked about the bullpen earlier. The tally for the series: 12 2/3 innings, 14 earned runs allowed, 9 walks. I think we've pretty much said what we need to say on that front. Ketel Marte only had 2 hits over the weekend, Jack, but both of them went over the fence. He drove in 4 in the Saturday game. Really put the D-backs in position to win that game, even though they ultimately were not able to do so. So anything else stand out from this weekend series for you?
Just the fact that, they're all major league teams. And I think if we haven't learned our lesson by now, we absolutely, are just being obtuse about it. There are no weak teams for the Diamondbacks in 2025. Every single team is capable of beating them. Every single team is capable of sweeping them.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And the Miami Marlins, certainly the Diamondbacks did not catch them at the best of times. We talked about that entering the series. The Marlins have now won 7 consecutive games. And they might, I don't know, Jack, maybe the Marlins rebuild isn't going to take quite as long as I thought it would. Dane Myers and Connor Norby, they have some pieces there that might loft them into interesting September baseball. I mean, maybe this season. I don't know. I mean, that seems like a little bit of a stretch, but maybe by next year the Marlins are an interesting team again.
Well, they're 3.5 games, 3 or 3.5 games back of the Diamondbacks in the standings, I believe. So, which you're going to get to in a little bit. So we'll see where that goes. Obviously, the Diamondbacks themselves are pretty far out at this point.
Well, we are going to take a look at the standings in the National League, see where the Diamondbacks stand after this disastrous weekend against Miami, and then have that larger conversation that I alluded to earlier about what this means for the D-backs approach at the trade deadline. We're going to take one more break, and then we'll be back to talk about all of that.
It might be that time. If you're looking for a new car, there's one place to go that is going to take care of you, and it's Car Gurus.
Yeah, looking for a car should be fun, not exhausting. Everywhere else, it's exhausting. You're dodging people. You're trying to just, can I look at this car? Car Gurus, you type in your search, you find the color that you want, it narrows it down for you, and all of a sudden you're like, this has been an exciting experience, and you got a great deal.
With over 4 million listings, Car Gurus has more car listings than any other major online automotive marketplace in the US, so you can find the best deal. It's no wonder SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows Car Gurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. Buy or sell your next car today with Car Gurus at cargurus.com. Go to cargurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's CARGURUS.com. Cargurus.com.
Well, Jack, unsurprisingly, the Diamondbacks did fall in the standings in a meaningful way as a result of this weekend. We can take a look at where they stand right now. This is the state of the NL wild card as of the end of play on Sunday or beginning of play on Monday. The Diamondbacks are now 5 games behind the third wild card team, which is the St. Louis Cardinals. They continue to play very good baseball, and there are still 3 teams separating them from that third wild card team, those being the Reds, Giants, and Padres. The Reds are 2.5 games up on the D-backs, the Giants 3.5, Padres 4 games. So at this point, Jack, I mean, the D-backs are actually, I guess they're slightly closer to the team in front of them in the Reds, but the Braves are only 3 games behind them right now. So at this point, the Diamondbacks are not in an advantageous position here whatsoever.
And I think just kind of looking at the way the games played out today, I mean, the Padres and the Giants finally have slowed down and kind of come back to the fold a little bit when it comes to where everyone expected them to be, at the bottom or, nipping at the heels of the number 3 wild card. And now here they are outside the wild card, but it was the Reds that beat the Padres.
Right.
And of course, there are the Cardinals who got hot again up in the third wild card spot. And that kind of speaks to just how difficult it is. I mean, everyone's playing each other and, you have these head-to-head games coming up. Now, they have a lot of head-to-head games remaining with both the Giants and the Padres. But, they're going to have to really find a way to turn it on. And what I keep going back to is this team capable of getting on a run with the bullpen in the state that it's in? When you ask me to imagine what a 8-game winning streak looks like for the Arizona Diamondbacks, it's not that hard for me to imagine all of a sudden, getting 6 or 7 good starts in a row, and then, overcoming a bad start with offense, right? It's not hard for me to imagine that, or even just 6 or 7 quality starts in a row with, still one of, the third or fourth best offenses in the league. It's not hard to imagine that. It's not hard to imagine the defense tightening up and going on an 8 to 10 game errorless streak. That's, they've already kind of approached that. I think recently they did have a pretty long errorless game streak. None of that's hard to imagine. It's extremely hard for me to imagine a world in which the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen can go 8 games without blowing 2 or 3 or 4 of them. I just can't see it. And so that's why I'm feeling increasingly pessimistic. Now, whether or not they're able to turn it around from within or to get help from the outside, I mean, they need so much help. They need 2 or 3 good relievers. And even if you bring in 2 or 3 good relievers are so volatile. Who knows if they're going to be good when they're here? We just went over Jalen Beeks, went through 37 games with a sub-3 ERA. Now he's got a 4.74 ERA 2 games later.
Yeah.
This is, regression is a harsh mistress. She just is.
I think back to the 2023 season, Jack, when it appeared that the Diamondbacks just were not going to make the playoffs, right? There was that stretch from the middle of July to the middle of August where they lost 25 out of 32 games. They didn't look like a team that had any business playing in the postseason, right? And their Fangraphs playoff odds as of August 11th of that year dipped down to 13.4%, which is not great. In the middle of August, you got a 13% chance to make the playoffs. Of course, the D-backs had chosen to buy at the trade deadline just a couple of weeks before that. But I'm thinking about that in comparison to where the Diamondbacks are right now, where Fangraphs gives them an 18.1% chance to make the playoffs. Technically, this team has a better chance to make the postseason than that 2023 team did, not quite at the same time of year. That was about a month and a half away, I guess, if you're comparing the two. But it is possible. I want to say that it is totally possible for a team in this situation mathematically to make up that ground and still find its way into the playoffs. But it is very unlikely. And to your point, imagining this team coming together for any kind of extended run is really hard to picture. So, going back to the question we have on the screen, are the D-backs officially sellers? My guess is the answer right now is no. I don't think the front office, after a really, really bad weekend, as terrible as it was, is making their final call on that on June 29th. But I do think it was a decisive push in that direction. If the Diamondbacks are in this position, Jack, a month from now, when the trade deadline actually has arrived, I don't know if there's much of a case to be investing in this team and trying to imagine all the stars lining up for this team to make the playoffs.
I agree 100%. And look, I want to emphasize, we all know, wait, excuse me. I just threw a Hail Mary.
Okay. Okay.
That's kind of what we're talking about here, right? I mean, it happens. Guys toss up the ball and the receiver jumps up in the air and three guys tip it and he comes down with the ball and they win the game. It happens.
Right.
So anything can happen. And that's why they got to keep playing and that's why they got to keep fighting. That's why we're going to keep talking about it from now until the end of time. This is what they do. This is what we do. But as we have to acknowledge that they are up against it. I mean, they are really up against it at this point. And like I just said, look, the hardest thing for me to wrap my brain around is how is this bullpen as currently constructed going to be able to prevent enough runs and keep them from blowing games? That's what's keeping them from getting on a run more than anything else. Not the only thing, I can kind of hear Mike Hazen in my ears, because he always emphasizes it's not only the bullpen. It's primarily the bullpen, Mike.
It's about,
and it just is. I mean, and look, we're past the point where we can keep saying, well, yeah, AJ Puck and Justin Martinez got hurt. Yes, those were big blows. There's no doubt about it. Those were big blows to this team. They were key players on top of Corbin Burns, on top of Corbin Carroll. But all of these problems pre-existed, actually, a lot of these injuries, with the exception of where they were on April 17th with their bullpen ERA. So, look, this team should not be imploding because of two reliever injuries.
Yeah, I think that's very fair to say. It's interesting to me to compare to last season as well. The Diamondbacks, as of June 29th in 2024, were 40-43. So this team actually is a game better than the team was a year ago at the same time. Granted, that team was in better position in the standings. The D-backs, as of June 29th of last year, were just 2.5 games out of the third wildcard spot as opposed to 5. And the Mets were the only team separating them from that third wildcard team, which was the St. Louis Cardinals at the time. So obviously things changed quite a bit down the stretch, and like all those teams got crazy hot. It wound up taking 90 wins basically to make the postseason. But yeah, I guess on one hand, Jack, it is possible. These things do happen. But the Diamondbacks are in a position right now where I think for the first time, Jack, I feel like in my head, I kind of lean towards sell now. Like, I think that is the more likely path for this team than buying after what I saw the last few days. But again, it could change. I mean, the D-backs go 4-2 or something this next week. Like, suddenly the calculus looks a little different.
Yeah. Well, the thing for me is you kind of convinced me, actually, of the need for controllable pitching no matter what they do. The question is that controllable pitching going to be available to them at the trade deadline, or is that going to be something that they'll be better able to acquire during the off season?
Right.
I think they're going to try. I mean, look, if we read the tea leaves of a Diamondbacks baseball operations group and what they've done in the past, sure, they'll pick up a rental here or there, whether it's a pitcher or a position player, but they almost always go for pitchers with control.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, there's a few exceptions here or there. It's not that they never picked up a rental reliever, but the vast majority of time, any moves of note include a pitcher with control. So, the whole scenario where it's kind of buy, sell at the same time, that seems like the most likely thing to me.
Yeah.
But what exactly that looks like and what the pieces are, I mean, sure, we're going to ramp up all our speculation and we're going to roll out our lists and, who's a good fit and who's not and who's available. But at the end of the day, they're going to come up with something or somebody that we never saw coming, because that's what they always do.
Yeah, Mike Hazen has pulled off some big trades over the years that were 100% unpredictable. Like no one could have ever ever thought of what he was going to do before he did it. So it'll be fun to see what happens here over the next month. Before we get out of here, we did want to take a look at the upcoming series against the San Francisco Giants, which of course is a very, very big one. The Giants have slipped a little bit lately, Jack, as you mentioned earlier. They have lost 10 of their last 14 games. They got swept by the Marlins right before the D-backs got swept by the Marlins. And they also just lost 2 out of 3 to the White Sox. So the Giants are really not playing good baseball at all coming into this series. You can see the probables for this matchup. We have Logan Webb going against Ryan Nelson on Monday, Hayden Birdsong against Zach Gallen on Tuesday. Then it's Landon Roop against Merrill Kelly, and then Robbie Ray against Brandon Pfaadt in the finale.
Yeah. I picked Logan Webb in a preseason to win the Cy Young Award, and he's kind of living up to that level of
Pretty
pitching.
good.
I don't know if he's
Pretty
going to
good
get
pick.
it, but
yeah.
I thought the reason I picked him was because I felt like this was a year where he'd get a little bit more run support than he has in the past. And so he'd end up with the win totals that, might kind of catch the voters' eyes. I mean, his ability to rack up the innings and get deep into games just creates so much value. His run prevention is always pretty good. This year it's fantastic. So we'll see where that goes. Hayden Birdsong, he's had a couple of rough starts. I think he's given up 12 runs, 11 earned in his last 8 1/3 innings pitched. Hopefully that's a trend that continues because he's facing Zach Gallen, who has almost equally struggled. Merrill Kelly, hopefully, is a bounce-back candidate. And then you have Robbie Ray versus Brandon Pfaadt. And this year's version of Robbie Ray is a very good pitcher again. So, you look at those pitching matchups, and I kind of feel like split. It feels splittish.
The big issue for the Giants lately has been their offense, and really has been the issue for the entire season. I mean, that's kind of been the thing holding them back for a while now. They, of course, went and acquired Rafael Devers just about 2 weeks ago. And so far, Jack, he has not actually had much of an impact. He's hitting .217 with a .724 OPS. He has hit a couple of home runs, but I think he had 8 strikeouts over the weekend against Chicago. And of course, as I said that, I have prepared the way for Rafael Devers to have an unbelievable 4-game series, and everyone is going to blame me for it, and I'm fully prepared for that. The other thing I'll mention is that Willy Adames, a big signing for the Giants over the offseason, he's really struggled all year, Jack, in a way that I did not expect. I mean, this contract, it is still very early, but when you sign a guy to a 7-year deal for close to $200 million, you don't feel great when they have a 637 OPS around the All-Star break in the first year of that contract, but that's where things stand right now with Willy Adames.
Yeah, it's a little bit reminiscent of Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah.
In his first year, and everything that he's gone through. And I wasn't a big fan of the Adames signing from an analytical standpoint in the first place. That seemed to me to be too much, too long. I just wouldn't have done that. I would have never advocated for that for anybody. And with Devers, yeah, he's going to hit. Hopefully it's another week from now, but he's going to hit. And, it'll probably be in Chase Field.
Yeah, well, we'll see. The Giants come into the series 45-39 for the season. The D-backs have played them just once so far this season, and they took 2 out of 3 in San Francisco back in the middle of May. So we'll see if they're able to continue that positive momentum against the Giants here in this series. Well, thank you to all of you for being with us for this episode of Snakes Territory. We really appreciate it. As always, it'd be great if you'd subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the video, leave us a comment, go ahead, tell us that we love Torey Lovullo and all the things he does, or, whatever's on your mind, just get it out. We're happy to entertain it. We really appreciate all of you following us on social media as well. You can find me at Jesse and Friedman. Jack is at ShoeWizard59. Our show is at Snakes Territory. Jack wrote a story after this series from Chase Field with his takeaways from the series. You can read that as well as all of his other work over at si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. Jack, anything else on your mind as we finish off this episode?
Not really. I'm talked out, thought out, baseballed out for at least the next 12 hours.
Well, I'm glad you didn't say a week, because we have a four game series here against the Giants coming up. I will be, oddly enough, covering the Giants, doing some fill-in work for MLB.com over the next 4 days. So it'll be an odd series for me, sort of half covering the Diamondbacks, but also writing stories for MLB.com. So if you want to read my work about the Giants, you can find it at MLB.com here over the next few days. Thank you to all of you again for being with us. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back with another episode of Snakes Territory very, very soon.